नमस्ते, हमेशा खुश रहो बिटिया। I am JVN Dr. Minakshi, Assistant Professor in Department of Shalakya Tantra, Faculty of Ayurvedic Science, Jyoti Vidyapeeth, Women's University. Today in this session, we will discuss the topic scleritis. In the previous session, we discussed episcleritis, which was the benign recurrent inflammation of the episclera involving the overlying Tennant's capsule but not the underlying sclera. Now here is the topic scleritis. Scleritis refers to the chronic inflammation of the sclera proper. The second layer of sclera, its inflammation, and that also chronic. It is called the scleritis. It is comparatively serious disease which may cause visual impairment and even the loss of the eye if treated inadequately. So the scleritis disease was benign. It was not so much serious and there was no such visual impairment. But in case of scleritis, it may cause a visual impairment and the loss of eye also. And fortunately, its incidence is much less than that of the episcleritis. Means episcleritis is more common as compared to the scleritis. And scleritis usually occurs in the elderly patients in the age of 40 to 70 years, involving females more than the males. So, episcleritis was also more common in females. Then we come to the etiology. Talking about etiology, it is idiopathic. Similarly, in case of the episcleritis, it was also idiopathic. Exact etiology was not known. And autoimmune collagen disorders. It was found in association with multiple conditions like autoimmune collagen disorders, especially the rheumatoid arthritis RA, which is the most common association. Overall, about 5% cases of the scleritis are associated with some connective tissue disease. About 0.5% of patients, means 1 in 200, suffering from seropositive rheumatoid arthritis develop scleritis. Other associated collagen disorders are polyarthritis nodosa, systemic lupus erythematosus, and ankylosing spondylitis. So these are the some autoimmune collagen disorders which are associated with the scleritis. Then next is the metabolic disorders. Metabolic disorders like gout and thyrotoxicosis have also been reported to be associated with scleritis. Next is the granulomatous diseases like tuberculosis, syphilis, sarcoidosis, leprosy can also cause scleritis. Next are the infections. Some infections, particularly the herpes zoster, ophthalmicus, chronic staphylococcal, and streptococcal infection have also been known to cause scleritis. Then surgically induced. Surgically induced scleritis follows the ocular surgery. It occurs within 6 months post-operatively. Exact mechanism is not known. It may be precipitation of underlying systemic cause. Then miscellaneous conditions like irradiation, chemical burns, rosacea are also implicated in the etiology. Then we come to the histopathology. The histopathological changes are that of a chronic granulomatous disorder characterized by fibrinoid necrosis, destruction of collagen together with infiltration by polymorphonuclear cells, lymphocytes, plasma cells, and macrophages. The granuloma is surrounded by multinucleated epithelioid giant cells and old and new vessels, some of which may show evidence of vasculitis. Then we next come to the clinical features. Clinical features will be accordingly to the classification, and patients complain of the moderate to severe pain which is deep and boring in character and often wakes the patient early in the morning. And ocular pain radiates to the jaw and temple. It is associated with localized or diffuse redness, mild to severe photophobia, and lacrimation. Occasionally, there occurs the diminution of vision. These are the clinical features of scleritis. Next, we come to the classification. Scleritis can be classified as anterior scleritis and posterior scleritis. Before that, it can be non-infectious or infectious scleritis. In non-infectious scleritis, it is anterior and posterior scleritis. Again, anterior scleritis of non-necrotizing scleritis and necrotizing scleritis. Non-necrotizing scleritis can be diffuse of nodular, and necrotizing scleritis is with inflammation or without inflammation, which is also called the scleromalacia perforans. Then we come to the anterior scleritis, and in the anterior, non-necrotizing anterior scleritis, non-necrotizing anterior diffuse scleritis. It is the commonest variety characterized by the widespread inflammation involving a quadrant or more of the anterior sclera. The involved area is raised and salmon pink to purple in color. Here in this image, you can see the non-necrotizing anterior diffuse scleritis. Then next is the non-necrotizing anterior nodular scleritis. It is characterized by one or two hard, purplish, elevated scleral nodules, usually situated near the limbus. Sometimes the nodules are arranged in a ring around the limbus, and then it is called the annular scleritis. Here in this image, you can see the non-necrotizing anterior nodular scleritis. If it is in the form of a ring around the limbus, then it is called the annular scleritis. Then next is the necrotizing anterior scleritis. Necrotizing anterior scleritis with inflammation. It is acute form of scleritis characterized by intense localized inflammation associated with areas of infarction due to vasculitis. The affected necrosed area is thinned out and sclera becomes transparent and ectatic with uveal tissue shining through it. It is usually associated with anterior uveitis. Here is an image of the necrotizing anterior scleritis with inflammation. Next is the anterior necrotizing scleritis without inflammation. It occurs in the elderly females. It is called the scleromalacia perforans. This specific entirely typically occurs in elderly females, usually suffering from the long-standing rheumatoid arthritis, and it is characterized by development of yellowish patch of melting sclera due to obliteration of arterial supply, which often, together with the overlying episclera and conjunctiva, completely separates from the surrounding normal sclera. And this sequestrum of sclera becomes dead white in color, which eventually absorbs, leaving behind it a large punched out area of thin sclera through which the uveal tissue shines, and spontaneous perforation is extremely rare. Here is an image of the scleromalacia perforans. As you can see, there is a melting sclera. There is a punched out area of the thin sclera, and you can see the uveal tissue shining through it. So rest part of the scleritis we will discuss in the next session. Thank you so much. This session is powered by Digital Version 2.0, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. I hope you are satisfied with my digital session. If you have any query, please mention in the comment box. I will resolve it soon. Thank you so much.
Diopter, which is the one third of the total refractive power of the eye. It is a three-fourth of the total refractive power of eye. That is, the total refractive power of eye is 60 diopter, and that of cornea is 45 diopter. Then the histology, there are 6 layers: anterior epithelium, Bowman's membrane, central stroma, Dua's layer, Descemet's membrane, endothelium. You can see in this image the epithelium, Bowman's layer, stroma, Dua's layer, Descemet's layer, and endothelium. First, the epithelium. The cornea epithelium is stratified, squamous, and non-keratinized. It is continuous with conjunctival epithelium at limbus, but having no goblet cells. Thickness is 50 to 90 micrometer. Consists of 5 or 6 layers of nucleated cells resting on a basal lamina, namely the basal cells, wing cells, and the surface cells. The basal lamina is secreted by the basal cells. It is 0.1 to 1 micrometer wide. Ultrastructurally, it is distinguished in two parts: lamina lucida and lamina densa. Lamina lucida is superficial, lamina densa is deep osmophilic. Then epithelial turnover. The early study suggested that the epithelium replaced approximately weekly by division of basal cells and the older shell from the surface. It is now recognized that the germinative region lies at the limbus. The stem cells and the cells migrate at a very slow rate to the center of cornea, which may be as long as the ear. Second layer, the Bowman's membrane. It binds the corneal stroma anteriorly with basement membrane of epithelium. It is not a true elastic membrane. Once destroyed, does not regenerate. Shows considerable resistance to infection and injury. Third layer is the stroma, which is 0.5 mm thick. The stroma or substantia propria occupies about 90% of the total corneal thickness. Composed of corneal collagen fibrils, keratocytes, and extracellular ground substances, the lamellae are arranged in many layers, 200 to 250, and are parallel to each other. The anterior one-third stroma as a lamella are thin, and in the posterior two-third of the stroma, the lamellae are larger. Next layer is the Dua's layer, which was discovered by Dr. Harminder Singh Dua at the University of Nottingham in 2013. It is the fourth layer, which is 15 microns thick. It is a strong layer and impervious to air. Fifth layer is the Descemet's membrane. It is a strong homogeneous layer. It is a basement membrane of endothelium made up of the collagen and glycoproteins. It is elastic. It can regenerate. It has a resistance to chemical agents, infection, and pathological processes. The peripheral rim of Descemet's membrane is the internal landmark of the corneal limbus, and also it is the anterior limit of the trabecular measure, which is called the Schwalbe's line. Then the last layer is the endothelium. Corneal endothelium is a simple squamous epithelium. Endothelial cells are hexagonal, which forms a continuous mosaic pattern, best seen in specular microscopy. Cell density at birth is 6,000 cells per micrometer square, and in young adults 2,500 to 3,000 cells per square millimeter. The endothelial cells cannot divide or replicate. With aging, the cell density of the endothelium decreases, which is compensated by an increase in the cell size or shape. As these endothelial cells are involved in corneal hydration, they help in maintenance of corneal transparency. The blood supply of cornea. The cornea is a vascular structure. Small loops derived from the anterior ciliary vessels invade its periphery for about 1 mm. Actually, these loops are not in cornea, but in the subconjunctival tissue which overlaps the cornea. Then the nerve supply of the cornea. Cornea is supplied by the anterior ciliary nerves, which are branches of the ophthalmic division of fifth cranial nerve. After going about 2 mm in cornea, the nerve loses their myelin sheath and divide dichotomously and forms three plexus: stromal plexus, subepithelial plexus, and the intraepithelial plexus. Then the applied physiology of cornea. Primary physiological functions of the cornea are to act as a major refractive medium and to protect the intraocular contents. Then the last point is corneal transparency. It is a result of peculiar arrangement of corneal lamellae, peculiar refractive index of corneal lamellae, vascularity of the cornea, relative state of dehydration, swelling pressure of stroma counters the imbibition effect of IOP, and corneal crystallines, water-soluble proteins of the keratocytes. Thank you so much. This session is powered by digital version 2.0, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. I hope you are satisfied with my digital session. If you have any query, please write in the comment box. I will resolve it. Thank